Hey friends, I hope the morning's treating you well. I got my coffee. I have a story I want to share with you today about the Grateful Dead. Back in 1995, were playing in Noblesville, Indiana. It's northeast of Indianapolis. It's kind of a suburb of Indianapolis. It's its own town, but it's been swallowed up by the sprawl. They're playing out there at Deer Creek, and huge crowd. It was a 2-day stand, July 3rd and 4th. Everybody showing up to have a really, really good time. Folks travel from far away like they do at Dead shows. And I was working at a bar called The Patio. It's a music venue on the north side of Indianapolis. So I was probably maybe 15 miles away from the concert. And I remember later in the evening, people started coming in, and they're like, man, there was a crazy thing happen out there at the Grateful Dead show. I said, these people rushed the fence out in the outfield area. It's an amphitheater, outdoor amphitheater. I think it's supposed to hold around 20 grand, but I'm not positive about that. But they rushed the fence, and a couple thousand people got in, and the police showed up and like pepper sprayed. They probably said that night tear gassed people. Just a big ugly scene. And I'm sitting here at the door hearing people coming in who were there just kind of telling me their stories that night. It's a little bit of an infamous evening in Indianapolis music history, and I'm sure in Grateful Dead music history. I thought it would be pretty fun to look up the newspaper archive and see what people were saying about it right when it happened. And imagine if you're a reporter, you know, you might cover music in your town or whatever. Something happens at night, this big event, and it's not obvious what happened or how it went down, but you have to write something immediately, and it's going to be printed in a paper probably 5 or 6 hours later. There'll be thousands upon thousands of copies of that, you know, so you got to get a story together and get some facts straight. And I'm always impressed by people who are able to do that. But I guess we'll start out with, that happened on July 3rd, the evening of July 3rd. The morning of July 4th, this is on the front page of the Indianapolis Star. And this was a few reporters chipping in. And here in a second, I'll get to where their names are, and I'll try to remember to read them. But the headline, Grateful Dead's Monday concert goes to early grave. Clever headline there. Officials decide the show must not go on after some fans without tickets stampeded at first show on Sunday. Noblesville, Indiana. They should have been waiting Monday afternoon for the Grateful Dead concert, but instead the show was over. A planned bliss-filled concert weekend was cut short because of a 20-minute stampede Sunday night by fans who tried to force their way into the first of 2 Grateful Dead shows. Late Monday morning, the rock band and officials of Deer Creek Music Center decided to cancel Monday night's show in the best interest of the community and the band's thousands of fans. In business parking lots in Noblesville, Dead fans sat and contemplated their loss and what it might mean for the future. People should realize the Dead won't be able to get permits for their shows if this kind of thing goes down. That's said by Adam Valentine, who was a 19-year-old from Paris, Tennessee. He sounds like a smart kid. I've been to Paris, Tennessee. The first thing I think of is there's a giant, it's a little bitty town, but there's a giant catfish statue there. And of course I had to go see that. I think they're known for farming catfish right there. And it's very close, maybe 20, 30 miles from where Patsy Cline's plane went down. But I'm digressing. I'm also a little bit hoarse today, so I apologize. But Adam Valentine says, or it goes on to say, the thing Valentine referred to was a decision by thousands of Dead fans to storm the amphitheater shortly after the concert began Sunday night. Hamilton County Sheriff's officials said as many as 3,000 fans who did not have tickets rushed the rear of the amphitheater at about 8:20 p.m., ripping apart entire sections of the facility's 8-foot-high wooden security fence. We're fortunate that no one made it through the fence, because I think there would have been, go to the next page, I think there would have been people trampled on the inside because it was filled to capacity, said Lieutenant Mike Owens, District Commander of the Indiana State Police. The crowd last year was pretty peaceful, and we just didn't have any anticipation that this would occur. Police estimated there were 30,000 people without tickets outside the amphitheater. 30,000 people. About 20,000 ticket holders watched the concert. So think about this. There were 50,000 Deadheads in some little small town suburb of Indianapolis outside of there. 50,000. Man, the Dead, I mean, we all know the Dead are like this amazing cultural phenomenon, but to get 50,000 people to come see you is just, it's kind of mind-blowing. That's, like Michael Jackson, when he was at the height of the Thriller thing, would fill a 50,000 seat place. Springsteen, Born in the USA, at that height, and you think of all of the hype that surrounded all of that to create that. Meanwhile, the Dead are just doing what they do, and probably aren't getting much press, except for when stuff like this happens. And 50,000 fans that come to some random show in Indiana. That's amazing. And can you imagine? Okay, so a hell of a lot of these people would travel. Some of these people would probably be sleeping in tents or whatever, and that's cool. You'd be camping, sleeping in a van, whatever. But a lot of these people would be older and have money and would be getting hotel rooms, eating in restaurants. That's a pretty significant economic impact when the Dead would come to town and bring that many freaking people. So people, there'd be the downsides of how people would talk about that, or whatever. But I think the local communities, leaders would probably realize they might not have liked having people walking around in tie-dyes in, parts of Indiana back then, which it's 95, Trying to remember what life was like in 1995. My life was pretty good right then, but it was simple. But that's a huge, huge economic impact. But I'm getting off base just a little bit. But it says, okay, we'll go back. Police estimated there were 30,000 people without tickets outside the amphitheater. About 20,000 ticket holders watched the concert. More than 220 law enforcement officers were summoned to restore order. Sunshine Promotions, which owns Deer Creek, was entirely comfortable with the security staff on hand, said Sunshine publicist Brandon Lucas. Lucas blamed the unruly fans for ruining the show for ticket holders and described the commotion as an incident, not a riot. Neither Lucas nor a spokesman for the band knew whether the band would return to the concert site. Okay, so I'll skip down just a little bit. 17 people were arrested as a result of the disturbance, mostly on charges of disorderly conduct or battery on a police officer. One of those arrested was bitten by a police dog and treated at a local hospital for his wounds, police said. 4 officers suffered minor injuries, and at least 15 squad cars were damaged in the fracas. Community Hospital North reported treating at least 9 people for injuries. So this is my favorite quote of this entire article. It's from the kid, Valentine, from Paris, Tennessee. He says that he had tickets to shows on both nights, but he summed up the incident this way. More than likely, it was a combination of people who didn't have much sense to begin with and a lot of beer. So I guess country music fans showed up to the Dead show. A combination of people who didn't have much sense to begin with and a lot of beer. Well, you could, that sounds like most of my family there, but anyway, I will move on to, so imagine you're trying to put together that story. That's put together by staff writers Rob Schneider, Ruth Mullen, Mark D. Allen. I know Mark, haven't seen him in years. Aaron Nathan's contributed to this story. You imagine the pressure of putting that together on like just a few hours' notice and interviewing people and just trying to get the story together. But a few days later, the Star ended up getting just a lot of letters to the editor, and they went ahead and actually this is the Indianapolis News, and they went ahead and published quite a few of them. There's a lot of articles that keep popping up about this because I don't remember reading a ton of articles at the time, but it was obviously big news. And I'm guessing if you're a Deadhead, you probably remember this. This had to really be a big deal in the Grateful Dead community. But here's one particular. I'm just going to pick and choose out of a lot of letters to the editor. Police harassed concert crowds. To the editor of the News. In your newspaper's articles concerning the so-called riot, in quotation marks, at Deer Creek during the Grateful Dead show, one important factor was left out. The reason people began throwing rocks and bottles at the police were taunting and harassing us all over the place, anywhere near Deer Creek, and especially in the parking lot. They had it all hyped up beforehand and showed up looking for trouble. Their problem was that since Deadheads don't cause major problems, the police had to. People always gather there where the riot happened. That's the best place to hear the show if one doesn't have a ticket. Okay, so there's a lot of different. That was written by Louis Levedta from Bloomington, Indiana. There was a lot of letters like that, and there's another one here. I thought this was interesting. Just put the blame where it belongs. To the editor of the News. I have completed reading the July 5th article, and I found it the most irritating piece of tripe I've seen in a long time. As far as I could tell, there was no riot at the Dead show. I was there. A riot to me is a lot more than 100 or so drunks damaging a fence. The only reason the fiasco at the concert has been called a riot was that it was a slow news day. 39 arrests out of more than 50,000 people is 0.078%. Holy cow, what a riot. I am an attorney and have listened to the Grateful Dead for more than 15 years. At the concert, I saw commissioners, judges, doctors, bailiffs, prosecutors, and all other forms of professionals. So outside of all the hyperbole that this guy's writing, I think this is really interesting. Here's the problem as I see it. Deer Creek charged $10 per carload to anyone who wanted to enter the lot. My guess is that there were nearly 70,000 people and more than 25,000 cars. 70,000 people, more than 25,000 cars. I'm not sure where 25,000 cars would have been. At $10 a car, that is quite a bit of cash. Once it was announced that the show was canceled, word of it traveled to the Dead camps like lightning. Had Deer Creek made announcements that no one would be allowed to park without tickets, it would have discouraged many from even traveling to the show. It goes on, but that was Luther T. Garcia of Indianapolis. And I don't know if those numbers are right, but I've always wondered if there were 30,000 people outside this show. If you've ever been to the facility, you got to go through you have to be on the property and make it through like a gate where they kind of wave you in to go park and all of that to even get onto the property, and then you go to the amphitheater. And I was always wondering why did they let that many people on? But apparently they were just charging people, and since it's a Dead show, people would hang out and tailgate and party and all of that, and I just can't imagine it. So here's a dissenting opinion, which is, I'll throw it out here. Says spoiled children. To the editor of the News, as a Grateful Dead fan who, along with 7 other friends, traveled 6 hours in order to be a part of our favorite band's concert at Deer Creek, I was angered and embarrassed by the actions of selfish, unthinking, and ignorant participants in the crowd. Unfortunately, the Deadhead aesthetic is being tarnished by those who act like spoiled children and those whose sole intent is to tailgate and disregard the music. He put tailgate in quotation marks. Deer Creek gained such a revered reputation because of its relaxed atmosphere and the stunning shows performed there. It is a shame that much of that changed on the evening of July 2nd. While my small group of friends and I were inside Deer Creek with our legitimate tickets and had no knowledge of the severity of what was going on until the next morning, we nonetheless apologize for what others have done. I hope these words will give citizens as well as police officers at Deer Creek officials another view of Deadheads, that we condemn all hooliganisms. That is a John Gatta from Warren, Ohio, and it is interesting that if there was 50,000 people, I apologize, I'm sweating here on my front porch. If there were 50,000 people there and 3,000 went through the fence outside, it is a wonder that people did not get stampeded and hurt if it was already packed inside. The folks that I know who were at that show said that it really wasn't that noticeable. These are people that I knew that were in the outfield then, but or in the lawn as they call it. But that is a very small number, a small percentage. And unlike the attorney who said it was less than 1%, we'll say it was 4 or 5. 4 or 5% of people are usually jackasses anyway. As a guy who's been known to read some comments on the internet from time to time. But I think this kind of sums it up really nice here. This is Mark Allen, who was one of the people that put together the original article there, but he still writes and lives here, but he was our music editor at the Indy Star. He would write about concerts and stuff like that. And he'd go to the effort. In a time when there wasn't a lot of this, he would write about local bands, people that made an album locally, and or were doing something interesting locally. He would fight to write articles about them, and he needs to be commended for that. Because there wasn't a lot of that then. There became a little bit more of that when Dave Linkwitz took over. But anyway, Mark is a really good writer who I don't know if I've seen him in 25 years, and I don't know him very well. But anyway, this is his article. It's a commentary. And the cops are coming after me, as you can tell. They must have heard there was a Deadhead riot or something like that. But it says, concert melee was troublesome, not a tragedy. Perspective is everything. So now that the so-called riot is a week into our collective rearview mirror, this is published on July 8th, a week after this happened. So now that the little so-called riot is a week into our collective rearview mirror, let's assess what actually happened at last Sunday's Grateful Dead concert. That night, several hundred kids made a run for Deer Creek Music Center's back fence. They threw rocks and bottles and spit at security. Some smashed in the fence and got in. Police held back others using tear gas, dogs, and any means necessary. Authorities restored order within 2 minutes. No shots were fired. No one was seriously injured. On a slow news day, that became a riot. What happened in Los Angeles after the Rodney King verdict, that was a riot. What happened at Deer Creek was a skirmish at best, the result of some stupid fans and maybe some poor planning that left an estimated 40,000 people outside Deer Creek with nothing better to do. I don't know if the 40,000 is the right number since it's a week later and it's a for real journalist writing that. Maybe that's accurate. 40,000 people. In the aftermath, there have been and will be people who want to ban the Grateful Dead from Deer Creek. This is castration to cure jock itch. The Grateful Dead and its fans are not a rolling version of the '68 Democratic Convention, nor obviously are they the peace and love embodiment of that mythical decade known as the '60s. In reality, what we had here was a rock band, some hopelessly devoted fans, and some bored people who got hungry for music and forgot their manners. I don't condone what those kids did, not at all. People could have been trampled. From what I can tell, police did a terrific job quashing what could have become a dangerous, ugly situation. And given what happened, calling off Monday's second show made some sense. It was a way to let the community know that both the band and the promoter were embarrassed. They certainly didn't want an encore. I'm curious if any of you guys were there. Do you remember this? If you're into the Grateful Dead, can you remember back in 1995? There were a few different problems at shows throughout that year I didn't know about until I started looking back at this. But I'd be curious to hear your firsthand accounts of what happened down below. And did you ever see anything really bad happen at a concert? I've witnessed a few things that I didn't feel very good about. You know, and you get, what did the kids say? When you get people with a lack of sense and a bunch of alcohol, sometimes bad things happen. But I'm curious what you guys think about that. And I'm going to sit back and try to remember how fun it was to sit comfortably behind the desk at the door at the patio checking IDs that night and hearing the stories as people came in. I was completely safe and did not have to deal with any of it. And I like it that way. But anyway, I hope things are good with y'all. Take care of each other. Today is Amy's birthday, so we're going to do something fun. If you'd like to drop a little something in the tip jar today for Amy's birthday, I'll make sure it makes it to her, and she can go buy herself something nice. But either way, I'll talk to you guys soon. Much love to you.